Thanks, Natasha. Newly released data shows that blended families have grown really an unsurprising 37.5% in recent years. Today, we have 5 tips for blended families to help them get through their unique financial challenges. Joining me now is Jeet Dhillon from TD. Now, Jeet, one of the things I think that is the overarching theme of what we're going to talk about is communication.
Absolutely.
It seems to be finances are such a hard thing to talk about. So the first thing is, and this is your first tip, talk about it.
Yeah, it's the first thing is blended families, they need to have these conversations. Just talk. It's important to open up that dialogue. Set some time aside where you can come together as a family and discuss what the financial objectives are, what the goals are, and address each other's priorities. Because people come with different views, different values, and it's important to understand what that looks like. One of the things that we did a recent survey, and in that survey from blended families, they said that a lot of people did not talk about this before they became a blended family, and knowing. So
that's before they didn't talk about it before they moved in, before they got remarried.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And they basically, said knowing what they know now after becoming a blended family, they wish they had had that conversation much earlier before even making that decision to join family. So communication is a starting point. Very important.
One of the things that one of the challenges that you have listed here is it's determining who pays for household expenses. That's a tough one. Differing views on managing the budget and determining household saving priorities, and that long term, I mean, if you get married, it's supposed to be for life, or at least as long as you can.
Exactly.
And it's one of those things where saving priorities, that's a very, very important topic.
Right, right. And that's really where, people have different priorities. Building a budget together is a really good idea. So you sit down, you address what everyone's priorities are, and determine how funds are going to be allocated. That way everybody's on the same page right from the get-go. And in terms of making sure that budget stays intact, you have more commitment from everyone because they've discussed it, they've bought into it, and everybody's on the same page and committed to making sure it works.
Talk to me about setting expectations. When you talk about being on the same page and that sort of thing, how do you go about setting expectations, especially when yours may be a little bit different from your partners and their families?
Exactly. So expectations are, well, first of all, every member of the family doesn't mean that they're all going to be making the same level of income. So it's important to understand who's going to contribute how much to the household expenses. That needs to be an open dialogue. The other thing is, one person might be more savvy about managing day-to-day expenses and paying bills and things like that. And we need to understand who's going to take that lead, and also how are they going to loop in all the other family members. So it's important to set expectations about what the expenses are, who's going to commit to what. The other thing about the budget is, because some people are savers and spenders, build a little bit of slack into that budget. Like, build some space. So if you have a discretionary budget that every member is allocated.
An accidental purchase, maybe?
Accidental purchase, because that relieves a little bit of the stress, and it allows people a little bit of freedom to say, you know what, I can spend on these things without having to report back all these purchases. So we call it, like, in your budget, have an item called fun money. And people are able to do what they want for that portion. Now, the last thing is going back to the communication, right? It's not just communicating once, it's communicating often. Often, exactly. So I'm in the financial planning business. We help a lot of our clients do these things because it is sensitive topics. It can be difficult. When you have a financial plan or a budget, it's not a one-time thing. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be discussed to see if things are progressing on track. If things are not going well, how can we make adjustments? So that ongoing dialogue, and it's good to actually have a disciplined approach to doing that, because in this survey we also found that a lot of people said they're constantly arguing with family members about household expenses. So if there is a forum where families come together, they have this open dialogue, it just sets the stage for a smooth running household. Do you recommend neutral ground for something like that? Do you recommend, like, maybe going to a coffee shop or something, so you're out of the house, you're out of, like, what do you think? Absolutely. Go somewhere where it just gives you that openness to be able to talk. In that business, we also recommend bringing in, say, a financial advisor. If it's a very sensitive topic and if people are just at extremes, bring in someone who can bridge some of those gaps. And when you have an independent third party guiding the conversation, bringing in important piece is it just is an easier conversation because you're having someone facilitate it for you versus you having to be proactive and bring these. So
and making recommendations.
and making
that are
recommendations. So
yeah.
so enlist the help of a financial advisor if need be.
Amazing. Jeet Dhillon from TD, thank you so much for coming in today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Adam. My pleasure.